My name is Molly Melching, and I'm the Executive Director of Tostan. I have lived in Senegal now for 35 years, and when I first came here, I became very interested in the question of education, particularly for children and for women who have not been to school and who have not benefited from an education and received just basic information on things like health and the environment and problem solving, things like management skills. And so I started a program in 1982 which was with the villagers of a community where I lived for 3 to 4 years. And with the villagers we brought together a program that introduces themes and priorities of the community that they really themselves want to learn. And we did this, of course, all in national languages, in the languages that the people speak themselves. We actually, our organization, Tostan, works in 8 African countries, and we do the program in 22 national languages. And really, I would say that the goal of this program is to give villagers themselves the capacity and the skills and the information they need to make their own decisions to determine their own future. And we do this by starting with modules on democracy, on human rights, on problem solving, on hygiene and health. And that first year of learning is really about dialogue and discussion among people. We don't do any literacy learning at all that first year. It's all inspired from the oral tradition. People sing and dance and recite poetry, and as they learn human rights, they make up songs about human rights. They do role play and they do theater to illustrate how you can use your human rights in your everyday life. How, if you have problems around these rights, let's say the right to be free from all forms of violence. For women, for example, who have problems with this human right, the women come together and discuss, but with the men also, how they can bring the community to change these traditions or these norms, these social norms, where this was an accepted practice. So it's been very powerful, this human rights education, and it has led to many changes. And one of the changes that has come about is the ending of the practice of female genital cutting. It happened the first time that the women, when they learned human rights, came together and decided to abandon the practice. On July 31st, 1997, they came together and said, we are going to abandon it. We know we have the right to health. We have a responsibility to protect the lives of our daughters. And this actually was like set off a movement across Senegal. When these women dared to stand up and abandon a practice that had lasted for centuries among their ethnic group, it led other villages to have the courage, after having done the program, learned their human rights, learned problem solving, and then of course they go on to do literacy work and management skills, and they start their own projects. So it's really about social and economic development. And this helps them then when they abandon practices such as female genital cutting and child marriage, practices that have lasted for so many years. And what Tostan realized is that as people are learning and they make these decisions, it is really critical for them to reach out to their intermarrying group. That is because here it is so important to include everyone who is in this group of decision makers. If one family were to stand up and say, okay, we're not going to do this anymore, they would really be cutting off their daughter. I mean, she would have no husband. She would be rejected and marginalized and ostracized by the community. And so what we soon realized with the participation of all the community, the participants, the leaders and the religious leaders, they said, you know, this is a practice that has to be ended with the whole group. That is, the women, the men, the children, the circumcisers, the religious leaders, the village chiefs. They all have to be part of this decision, and then you have to reach out to the whole network. So people reach out to their social network, and what's amazing is it's the participants themselves. After they have gone through the program, they have learned this information in their own languages. So it's very quick because, of course, when you learn in your own language, you get the information you need to make these decisions. They then reach out to the community. The class reaches out to the community, and the community then reaches out to the other communities that are important in their social network. And Tostan facilitates people coming together, having inter-community meetings, discussing these issues together, looking at the advantages, the disadvantages, and then really making the decision themselves. And then once those decisions are made, people come together and make public declarations. It's like when you decide to go from one practice to another, like we are no longer going to do this, it really is important that it's made public. And we have had 42 public declarations for abandonment of female genital cutting in Senegal to date. And there are 4,229 communities out of the 5,000 that once practiced who have abandoned since 1997. And the movement has spilled over into the Gambia, to Guinea, and now into Mauritania, into Mali. We're working in those countries, and we try to link up the interconnected communities so that people can discuss with one another. Once they have learned about their human rights and they have made these decisions, they need to meet together. So it's not about just one country, it's about going across borders and reaching out to those social networks and allowing them to have the space to come together to discuss. And usually when they have the right information, they make really good decisions. And so we have seen this movement growing. We even had public declarations in Somalia, where we've been working for 3 years. After going through the program, we've had 34 communities that decided to abandon the practice of female genital cutting. And it's just sort of an amazing movement that's going on.